Good morning, my students. Today is Thursday, 26th of March, 2020. Grade 12 Advanced Literature Revision. Objectives: to discuss some questions related to Chapter 1 and 2, especially Chapter 2. Course book page 117 and 180. In pairs, think about what has happened so far in Oliver Twist. Make notes of the main points of action on the plot diagram. Exposition: Oliver is born. His mother dies. Oliver lives in an orphanage. Rising actions: what had happened? Oliver meets Mr. Bumble. Oliver is taken from the orphanage to the workhouse. Oliver asks for more food. Oliver is punished because he asked for more food. Mr. Gamfield tries to take Oliver as a chimney sweep. The judge decides that Oliver can return to the workhouse. Oliver runs away from the workhouse and decides to go to London. Do you think the author wants you to view Oliver? Provide evidence for your answer where is possible. It is clear that the author wishes us to sympathize with Oliver. We are informed of the motivations behind his actions, his kindness, which is juxtaposed with the harsh actions of those around him who don't listen to him, are unkind, or use him for their own purpose. What do you mean by this? This word, juxtapose, to put two people, things very close together, especially in order to show a contrast. Read from the beginning of chapter 2. Oliver walked 20 miles to line 10. How do you think Oliver Twist is feeling in this passage? How do you know? How does the author emphasize Oliver's feeling and his situation in the text? Underline the evidence in the passage. Number 3, do many people help Oliver during his journey? How do you know? Read, Oliver walked 20 miles that day, and all that time tasted nothing but a crust of dry bread and a few mouthfuls of water. When the night came, he returned into a field and crept under a haystack, determined to lie there until morning. He felt frightened at first, for the wind moaned sadly over the empty fields. He was cold and hungry, and more alone than he had ever felt before. Being very tired with his walk, however, he soon fell asleep and forgot his trouble. He spent the next 7 days walking and begging for food and water. Most people ignored him, but a few kind-hearted people offered him small amounts of food that helped him to continue his journey. Finally, he reached a small town just outside London. The sun was rising in all its splendid beauty, but the light only served to show the boy his own loneliness, as he sat with bleeding feet and covered with dust upon a doorstep. It's okay. How do you think Oliver, question number 1, Twist is feeling in this passage? Sure, we can infer that Oliver is feeling tired, hungry, and alone. We know this from the text because of his lack of food or water. How far we know he has walked, that he has slept outside in a field, and he is described as feeling more alone than he had ever felt before. It's okay. Question number two. How does the author emphasize Oliver's feeling and his situation in the text, underline the evidence in the passage? The author emphasizes Oliver's feeling and situation through his descriptions. For instance, to emphasize the little food or water Oliver has had, the author uses the following description: a crust of dry bread, few mouthful of water. And as we know, many people ignored him. Furthermore, the fields that Oliver sleeps in are described as empty fields to emphasize his loneliness. It's okay. And his feet were bleeding and covered with dust. Do many people help Oliver during his journey? No, the author states that most people ignored him and only a few kind-hearted people offered him small amounts of food. Later in chapter 2, Oliver meets Jack Dawkins, or the Artful Dodger. As we know, this is a bad boy. And Fagin, he was also a very bad man who looks after Jack and some other boys. It's okay. Now we are going to read the descriptions of these two characters and answer the questions. Who is that? The boy was about Oliver's age, but was one of the strangest looking boys that Oliver had ever seen. He was stubby, nosed, flat, broad, common-faced boy, and was as dirty as one could imagine. But he had the airs and the manners of a man. He was short for his age, with rather bent legs and little, sharp, ugly eyes. His hat was stuck on the top of his head so lightly that it threatened to fall off every moment. Who is that? This is Artful Dodger or Jack Dawkins. This is the boy who took Oliver to Mr. Fagin's house. It's okay? Now, in a frying pan which was on the fire, some sausage were cooking, and standing over them with a toasting fork in his hand was a very old, shriveled man whose wicked and repulsive face was covered by a quantity of matted red hair. He was dressed in a greasy gown, with his throat bare, and seemed to be dividing his attention between the frying pan and the clothes horse. It's okay. Who is that? This is Mr. Fagin. How old is Jack Dawkins? As we know, the readers form that Jack Dawkins, or the Artful Dodger, is about the same age as Oliver. However, he wears a man's coat which reached nearly to his heels, and he had rolled the sleeves up. He is also described as having the airs and the manners of a man. No, neither his behavior nor his appearance match that of a boy. This is highlighted by the author in his description of his clothes that are too big for him. It's okay. Now, Jack Dawkins describes Fagin as a respectable old man. Does he appear respectable in the description? Why or why not? No, he doesn't appear respectable. His clothes are described as greasy, and he is described as very old and shriveled with a wicked and repulsive face. All these are bad adjectives that describe Mr. Fagin. What opinion would you form of their personalities based on their appearance? The odd appearance of Jack Dawkins, where his appearance and behavior doesn't match his age, could make a reader distrustful. He is also described as dirty with ugly eyes for Fagin. If we didn't know anything about his behavior, he wouldn't appear to be a friendly or kind man. He is described as being dirty with greasy clothing and matted hair, and his face is also not kind or gentle. In groups, discuss your response to the questions and provide evidence from the text where possible. Where is Oliver's situation? What is Oliver's situation? When he meets the artful Dodger, what does Dodger do? As we know, Oliver was very tired, hungry, dirty, and homeless, sitting on a doorstep with bleeding feet. The artful Dodger approached Oliver, bought him some meat and a half loaf of bread, and offered him a comfortable place to stay for free. What do Fagin, Dodger, and the boys do for Oliver when he arrives at the house? They smile at him, shake his hands, take his cap, and empty his pockets for him. He is also given dinner and hot tea before being put to bed and sleeping soundly. They seem very kind, but there is also something strange. Their laughter at the story of the handkerchiefs, the dirty street that the home is in, the password to enter, their eagerness to search his pockets. What game do the boys and the Fagin play? What do you think of the game? The game they play involves Fagin, dressed and acting like an old gentleman, walking around the town looking into shop windows. He has a box, a watch, a notebook, a chain, a glass case, a handkerchief, and a tie pin, and is constantly looking around and checking his pockets. Meanwhile, the boys try to take the things from his pockets without him noticing or seeing them. This is clearly a game where the boys are trying to pickpocket or steal without detection. This means Mr. Fagin tries to train boys how to steal things. But as I told you before, Oliver doesn't know the truth. He only thinks this is a game. What do you think the boys do for work each day? Do you believe that they make handkerchiefs? Based on the game and their constant laughter, we as readers can see that the boys steal these items and don't make them. The game is practice for what they do in the street to real people. Do you trust the Dodger or Fagin? Why or why not? Sure, we don't trust these people because they are thieves. It's okay, I'll give you a chance to read. Thank you very much for your listening. Goodbye.